Hello and welcome to this month's Patreon exclusive episode of predictocast, the podcast where we predict a movie storyline after watching only the first 10 minutes. I'm Josh, and with me as always is Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, Josh. Hey, patrons. Not everybody, because they're not all here.
That is very true. So we are continuing with our month of threes, where we do the third film in a series for this first month back for Predictocast Season 3, and for our Patreon exclusive episode, which was picked this month by Patreon supporter Ronnie Gardaki, the S.H.I.E.L.D. character, yes. He has picked for us Allegiant, the third in the Divergent series, and
I kept thinking that like it has to be spelled differently, I want to call it Allegiant. Like that can't be it.
This could be the most challenging first 10 minutes of any film.
Okay.
Not that the material that is presented to us is challenging, but in this kind of film, which these came out around the time or maybe a little bit after like the Hunger Games, and so it has a very similar-ish vibe to it. And then there's also like the Maze Runner movies, which I get these confused with. And I imagine that if you jumped into the third of the Hunger Games films or the third of the Maze Runner series, you would also probably be as lost as I am lost right now.
So we have done at this point, we have in the can 2 third movies in series, but those movies didn't really have a complex plot or backstory, if any.
No.
We in fact wondered in those movies while we were covering them if they were even within the same storyline or characters. This one has, at the very least, not judging on the quality of its backstory, but it has a quantity of backstory. In fact, opens with backstories that my eyes glazed over.
I will say, I will give the film credit for basically presenting a very condensed version of the previous films. We talk about a city. We talk about like people who are special in some way. These are the Divergent people. They're like humanity's only hope or choice or something. I can't remember exactly because it was a lot of information coming at me very quickly. And so I give them credit for at least trying to set up the world, but it was still maybe a little too much for me to take in. And also when we watch these 10 minutes, we are mostly making jokes over it. So it's very hard to remember what's going on.
If you're going to give me a scroll or backstory start of the movie, I do appreciate it. But if you're also at the same time going to have a mass of humanity walking towards the camera, and a lot of them have vests with no shirts, I am not going to pay that much attention to it because there are better things to look at, such as these early 90s R&B band looking fuckers.
I think that is I think what you said is a really good thing. We need scrolls to come back. Like they don't happen as much. I mean, Star Wars obviously has maintained that because that's sort of built into the film as a whole now. But like not a lot of films do scrolls anymore. And I really could use a scroll in something like this. Even
as someone has walked to the screen and literally opened up a scroll and started reading it. we go from this, we have these people, they're being herded through fancy futuristic garage doors with pistons.
Well, no, it seems like they're running from something towards an opening, but then a bunch of trucks intercept them and say, well, we're closing the gate. And then they get trapped inside.
Well, I guess. Well, walls are effective. That's what I've heard. So maybe this one is working very well to keep out these guys who just want to. They're trying to keep out London Beat. London Beat wants to come in.
But when did this movie come out? This was
2016.
So 2000. Oh, okay. So I was wondering about that. Like if we were at that point in our discussion of walls that this movie would have been trying to make a statement of some kind.
No, it just happened to walk into a statement that unfortunately we are still having to this day.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I feel like that has to be, well, maybe not, but no, they have to be doing that on purpose. Like, well, they have to be, right?
Maybe, but I mean, if you're talking about what we're going through now, I mean, the next obvious scene for them and for us is a burnt out husk of a city that looks like either the rampage monsters have come through and knocked them all down, or you aren't playing SimCity and you set all the disasters to go off at once. But luckily, our two heroes, I assume they are our two heroes. I'm not sure. There is a guy and a girl. They are remarkably clean as they climb to what appears to be the 70th story of a 200-story skyscraper.
Yeah, I mean, that is an issue with I think these types of like sort of post-apocalyptic films where you have these really beautiful actors playing these characters, but like there's not a speck of grime on them anywhere, and their tattered clothes are tattered professionally.
Well, I mean, if you were going to go and you were going to climb this literally a burned out husk of a skyscraper in the middle of 70 burned out husks of skyscrapers, and you're going up there to get down, you would make sure your hygiene is at its peak performance.
That is true, but do I really feel like boning down when I've just crawled up the side of a building and I'm all sweaty? I don't know.
Sweaty. They're not sweaty, though. These guys climb this building. Maybe because they are divergent, if that is what they are. They have special climbing powers.
Oh, maybe
much like the monsters in Rampage.
They have, like, part of being a divergent individual is your sweat glands aren't as active.
Or they're super active to the point where they come off as a mist off you instead of leaving...
You're always like 2 degrees cooler than all the air around you.
Exactly.
So it's this is our main character, Triss, right? Is that right? Beatrice?
Yeah, Beatrice, Shailene Woodley.
Yeah, and there is another guy who I don't know.
It is. Oh, it's played by. Let me see here. Oh, generic male actor.
I can't remember I don't know what his name is. I don't know anything. I only get hers because we see her name a lot and people say her name a lot. That's how you can tell that she's a main character, because people are constantly saying her name.
He has a symbol wrapped around his bicep on a piece of cloth. So that's the only thing that I remember about him physically, other than he is a white guy.
Yeah, he's the sort of standard bland white dude.
But she's into him, even in these surroundings. She's ready to do it against a cinder block.
Oh, according to IMDb, his name is 4.
Fuck, whatever. Don't care.
So they have some sort of plan, because they're on top of this building, or in part of this building, and they're looking out over the horizon, and there seems to be a wall pretty far off. And they're kind of saying, "Are you ready? Do you think we can pull this off, or whatever?" Who knows what their plan is? It must be about getting beyond the wall, I'm assuming. But they try to start making out, and he's doing that really sexy thing of pushing her against a cinder block, which is just very sexy.
She likes it literally rough. Abrasive even.
And as they're about to kiss, there is this giant
cock blocking skyscraper comes to life.
This big electronic face appears on the side of a building, on several buildings in the area. And this is Naomi Watts, I think, and she's talking about how a lot of people are concerned about what's going on. Someone just died. Who was it just died? Janine just died, and so people
we're going to hear about that a lot. Janine is the past. Janine is dead. We had to move on from Janine. People say Janine about 20 to 25 times.
So
Don't have a clue.
Janine must also be an important character. Maybe she or it will also come back at some point in the film. Maybe not, but I don't know. But they're saying that like Janine is dead and the wall is there for our protection, and so
Has good news ever been delivered by Giant Head Face?
I don't think so. I feel like whenever a giant head appears and it starts giving you some information, it's usually not a good thing. Like when has been okay? So other giant heads in cinema, obviously the Wizard of Oz, giant head. He makes them go commit murder. I mean, that's not a good thing. We've got like what I was most readily reminded of when this head popped up was like the 1984 Apple commercial with that giant head on the wall, like telling people what they could do. And then maybe Triss is like that blonde-haired woman with the what does she have, like a sledgehammer or something that runs in and throws it.
I mean, you can make 3 or 4 movies off that commercial alone. I mean, there's that giant neon woman in Blade Runner 2049.
Oh yeah, okay.
She was flirty, and also made him realize that the love of his life was just a product.
Yeah, that's true.
So
very
that
deep.
Was good. That was very deep.
Maybe this will get that deep. I don't know.
Maybe we'll have a very calm moment where someone sits in the snow and just contemplates that maybe life just sucks.
Are you doing that right now with the polar vortex?
We have 6 to 9 more inches coming this week, and maybe up to 20 inches. So
oh my God.
I fucking hate my life right now. There's so much snow.
So we somehow get from the building to the Lost Boys hangout from Hook.
We see them walking in there. We get some future hair, some Battlefield Earth hair.
Oh yes, that's true. They do go in. Triss tells her friend that she needs her to get her some things. But yeah, her friend looks like she just came from Woodstock 99.
I mean, she didn't have a great time, but she'll tell everybody she was there until at least 2049.
Yeah, she was there when everyone started burning down the place. Boy,
the 90s, we just ruined everything.
That's a good way
Salted the earth behind us.
That was a good way to cap off the decade. So they go into this big giant room. It very much does look like the Lost Boys hangout from Hook. There's people everywhere. And this is a really interesting thing that we do need to discuss, because the varying styles of dress from all of these characters doesn't totally fit together.
Like, there appear to be people in cages on the somewhat around, but it's not clear because it also looks like they could just be bars everywhere.
Yeah,
because they're just kind of like in like a old parking lot that's kind of been ruined.
This is a former factory that had the highest OSHA standards, so that's why all those bars are everywhere.
Exactly, so you don't fall to your death. We have people who are in, of course, vests with no shirts. We have people in future clothes. We have people in jumpsuits. We have a lot of people in dress shirts with like button-up collars and button-up sleeves, looking very sharp.
Well, Daniel Day Kim, he's in a nice suit, looking like he's doing Neo cosplay or something.
I know, but I mean, he's in a position of leadership and decision. Some people off the side are just dressed very nice for no reason, right next to people who aren't dressed nice at all. But you can't tell. Some of them, especially near the end, start to act like, they are next in line for this. The judgment is happening in this judgment circle or judgment half circle. I'm not sure what the exact dimensions of it, but it's not clear that it's like specifically the suits who are in trouble in this particular situation. Though we don't know the background of how these people were chosen. Maybe they are all divergents. They've all diverged, and that has grabbed people from all walks of life. Or maybe some people broke into a very nice department store before coming to this place, in this hollowed out, awful, rundown, worse than any fast food restaurant you've ever been in country. Just they're there and they decided, you know what? We're going to go see someone either live or die. I'm going to dress up for it because it's the only place to be seen, because most of the other places in the world are now destroyed.
Well, okay, so I think maybe it's the idea that It's like this world has brought together the tattered and the taintless. Like, I mean, maybe that's not the best word.
I'm just sitting here in stunned silence, and you just did that.
But it's it's like you've got these people in these nice clothing, and then you've got people who are in like torn clothes and kind of rags and things. Shouting bangarang and all that.
What's your happy thought, Josh?
My happy thought is that we don't have to watch the other films in this series.
Weirdly, my happy thought is Bangarang.
So we get the leaders kind of talking about how Janine is dead.
Janine is dead, by the way. We are now in a post-Janine society, and also Candor no longer exists. What is Candor?
I don't know.
We are living in a world of no Candor anymore.
Well, that's true.
We do have truth drugs, though.
Yeah, so they bring out a guy who is apparently he was a bad guy at some point.
He was an enforcer for Janine?
Yes. We still haven't figured out if Janine is a person or if she is like like an AI or some sort of robot, maybe.
I mean, also you could call a entire a whole a whole force. Like Janine stands for something.
Oh, what does Janine stand for? What is that acronym?
That's too many letters, and I want to think about it. We'll assume it's a person who was the head before Naomi Watts was the head.
Justice. Nice.
Nice.
Justice and nice ice.
Nice.
Justice and nice ice, nice. Everybody.
You still forgot another E in there somewhere.
Did I? I don't think so.
Jen.
Oh, fuck, you're right. Okay. All right, let's start over.
Okay. Justice, everybody, and nice.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's it. Justice, everybody, and nice ice, nice, everybody. I think that's what it stands for. That makes total sense, right?
It makes as much sense as the fact that since Candor no longer exists, anything is possible.
Yeah, so this guy, Max, he comes out and they shoot his neck with like a weird drug or something. And we think this is like a truth serum or something, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, he seems like he would have said this anyways, but they ask him if, while being an enforcer for Janine, if he killed people because of the orders or because he wanted to. And he says, I wanted to. They're sheep. Sheep have to be culled. I don't know. Herded?
Yeah.
I lost the track there.
Shaved. And then he shows off this amazing hair vest that he made.
He needs he needs that human wool, which is what I call hair.
The human wool. So he says this, and then they kind of seem to open it up to the crowd to see who might have an opinion. And everyone kind of starts yelling indiscriminately about what their thoughts are.
And not to be judgy, but this scene is terrible. Everyone it looks like this is what a bunch of kids filming a film would think a mob would do in Mob Justice.
Everyone is either saying kill him or let him live, and then some people
all
are
shaking
saying
fists because that's what adults do.
Well, yeah, they're shaking their fists and screaming either kill him or let him live, and then the people who are saying let him live are saying rise above it, which sure, yeah, I think you should rise above wanting to murder a person.
I mean, they said someone says the past was all about not letting them live, and now we're past that. But we're grown up, so we shake our fists and we wear long coats. And then I didn't notice if they had made a decision, but apparently they had decided to shoot him.
Well, it seems unclear because we also forgot to mention that early on when Triss is coming into this cool clubhouse that they have,
Burger King Kids Zone.
She runs into Octavia Spencer, and she's there saying that like they need her on their side, I think. So there's already obviously some sort of factions that have kind of developed. Evelyn, who's played by Naomi Watts, seems to be in charge. And it seems like she, after she hears him out, says that she's going to rise above it and it's time for a new day. But then they kill this guy anyway.
Yeah, some dude with like a mohawk walks up behind him with a gun, and then he says, I don't want to die. Because he's still got truth serum in it, and he doesn't want to die. And then they say, neither did your sheep. And then they shoot him, except for his head's entirely intact from a point-blank gun.
Well, like I said, it's one of those No Country for Old Men, like cattle guns. It just shoots like a bolt out into the back of his neck, and then he's dead. It's humane that way. It
caused some damage, correct?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just a nice, clean hole.
What? If there's anything we here at predictocast love, it's a nice, clean hole.
That's only for you, Patreon subscribers. Okay. And so then they carry his body away. There's a guy who's locked up in across the way in a cage. He's wearing a suit, and he's shouting to her, saying, "Hey, don't let them kill me. I'm sorry," or whatever. And she just kind of walks away, and we get a quick scene right at the end where Evelyn goes into an office where the bland white guy 4 is working on something. He's writing a paper or something. He's got to turn in a paper tomorrow in English class, and he's got to get it done. And she's yelling at him about he needs to get Triss on their side. And he's like, I can't tell her what to do. And they start arguing about people wanting to get over the wall or whatever. But it seems like, and I guess we can jump into predictions here. It seems like 4 and Triss are working together, and maybe he's like a spy or something, or he thinks that he's wanting Evelyn to think that he's on her side, but he's actually not.
I mean, he's cleaner than a lot of people down, not all of them, but than a lot of people in the fun zone. The splash zone down in the Double Dare arena, but he does have that wrap around his arm. That maybe means he's part of a certain elite there.
Yeah, I think so.
I hope the article he's writing is just Janine is dead over and over again. In case you didn't know from the first 10 minutes, Janine is dead.
This is hard. This
is hard because here's the reason why it's hard, Judd. I'll tell you why it's hard.
Please lay it out.
There's an overarching theme, I assume, to the Divergent movies that would, in a third movie, have a landing pad to a degree. An arc that is now arcing downwards. Except for we don't know where they threw the ball from. We don't know if it's actually a ball. We don't know how high it went. We don't know the speed it's going. And it might be landing in the ocean. It might be landing against the side of a barn. It might disintegrate in the air. We have no idea where this ball is going, where it's been. And thus, it is very difficult to picture where this movie may be headed. Because I don't know anything other than her name is Beatrice. Janine is dead.
So let's speculate on the big question. Do they get over the wall in this movie?
I think one of them does and one of them does not.
Oh, so this is also a thing that I do not know. Are there other movies after this one? Because
when I was looking it up to find if it was on streaming services for an affordable price, one of the things I saw was Divergent, Allegiant Part 2 canceled.
Oh, fuck. God damn it.
So this movie will not only end unsatisfactorily, it will never end.
This will end unsatisfactorily in 2 ways. 1, on a cliffhanger, and 2, never to be resolved.
3, in a graphic novel that the fans will say is canon, but no one else in the world will give a shit about.
So this will
Take
be
that, Buffy season 7 or what the fuck it was.
It was 8 and beyond.
Okay.
But this will be doubly worse for us because not only will we not know where we have been and what these characters have been through, but there's no way that this is going to wrap up satisfactorily in any way. It's definitely going to leave on a cliffhanger, and I think you're right. One of them will get over the wall and one will be trapped behind it, and that will be where the movie ends, with them separated and not knowing how they're going to get back together.
It would be funny if one of them went over the wall to get the other one, and the other one came back inside, and they just kept being on the wrong side.
Oh, it's like an O. Henry thing.
It's an O. Henry thing. It's the gift of the Magi, except for the gift is a wall.
I went beyond the wall to bring you back, but let's see. I bought a ladder to go over the wall. Well, I bought a shovel to dig under the wall.
I brought a rope. I used my hair to make a rope to pull you over the wall. I cut off my hands. Why did you cut off your hands? Well, I was bored.
I cut off my hands to sell them for gold to buy a shovel to dig under the
magic
wall.
Beans that would grow a beanstalk that I could climb over the wall with, but I have no hands. Do you think any more skyscrapers will stop people from having sex? I mean, they could have continued because the building didn't see them back.
Yeah, they couldn't. There was no direct line of sight, and also we don't know if she's able to actually see people when she's doing that, which would be very disorienting because she's looking at 1,000 places at once.
She's like in the middle of her speech, like, wait, hey, I see you over there. Knock it off.
And there's just a random person watching, like, what are you talking about?
What a future.
Boy, oh boy. I think that it's okay to make this first part here a little bit shorter because we are so unbelievably lost.
We're in the future weeds.
Yes, this is going to be a rough one because we don't know where we've been, and there's no one knows where we're going because the movie series has never finished.
And I just looked it up. They were going to make it a TV series to finish it up on Stars. That as well has been canceled.
Oh my God. Okay, so we can also assume that these movies were not popular enough.
Apparently this movie was a giant failure.
Oh God.
Can you imagine like the Hunger Games or Harry Potter or even, I assume, Maze Runner, who the fuck knows, didn't finish?
Yeah,
like
that would be
seven
crazy.
Jaws movies.
Yeah, that's got to be crazy. Like especially for something like this that I believe is based on like a book series, very similar to the Hunger Games and things like that, and Harry Potter. So
what if it's like not a book series? It was just made to capitalize upon those book series without having to actually pay an author.
Well, I'm sure that has happened before, but it does. One of the plot keywords on IMDb is based on novels, so
maybe it's based on a novel idea.
Yeah, it truncated it on screen. But yeah, man, it's gonna be tough. Like so far, it seems fine. Like the special effects are decent and it looks okay, but
there's real actors in it. One of them just died. He got shot in the head. Yeah,
Mekhi Phifer just getting his head blown off is kind of crazy. Like 10 minutes into the movie, but yeah, looking at the cast, there's a ton of people like. Naomi Watts, obviously, Octavia Spencer, we already mentioned. Jeff Daniels apparently is in this. Zoe Kravitz, Miles Teller, Daniel Day Kim, Maggie Q, Bill Skarsgård.
Bill Skarsgård's here.
Yeah. Ray Stevenson, Xander Berkeley, like Ashley Judd. Like there are people in this, so it's.
A movie can't have Naomi Watts and Ashley Judd, right?
They don't share any scenes together.
Okay, good. That's my heat, by the way. Is Ashley Judd and Naomi Watts.
Perfect. Fun fact, there is a character in the film named Hollis, so they will be my favorite character no matter what they do.
They're going to be on screen having sex with a dog.
Oh, God, no.
It's a very good boy, though, so don't worry about it.
Well, I think that's the perfect place to wrap up part one. We'll be back after a very short break to talk about the rest of Allegiant. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. We have now watched the rest of Allegiant, and while it was only a couple of seconds for you, it's been several weeks for us, which I think adds to the discombobulation felt while watching this movie, where they were talking about lots of things that seemed very important, and yet I had no reference point for.
I want to point. Okay, I'm going to make this clear very early on as far as my viewpoint on this movie and what you will hear from me as it goes on. I hate this movie, but I'm not saying the movie is bad. I'm not saying the acting is bad, and I'm not saying the book series is bad. I am saying personally, I hate this movie. I rented it 3 times to get through to it.
I'm so sorry.
The first time was when I rented it so we could watch the first 10, and then I just never, because a big storm constantly hit the Midwest. I would just had no time to even finish watching it. Fine. I rented it again. I got sick. I thought, okay, I'm gonna be on the couch sick. I can watch it then. Rented it. I couldn't stay awake. I was so sick. Missed it again. So just before we recorded here, I finally watched the last 40 fucking minutes of this movie that I have now spent probably about $12 on.
This movie. That's interesting that you only watched the last 40 minutes.
40 minutes. God. So I'm gonna say right from the beginning. This movie should be called Divergent. 4 rules. 4 is the best. 4 mansplains everything. 4 can beat up everyone. He comes across new technology and he knows it better than the future people do within minutes, seconds. He has figured out the plot of the movie before anyone else has.
This is this is my biggest point of contention with the film and with this character, because ostensibly it certainly seems like Triss is our main character, very much in the mold of like Katniss from the Hunger Games. Like, we're supposed to be following her. This seemingly is about her, and because it seems like all the characters are sort of rotating around her. We've got her brother, and we've got like her mother. Some revelations about that in this movie, and so she certainly seems like our main character, and yet she is duped by the bad guy, and 4 knows right away that this guy's bad news and she shouldn't listen to him. And so our main character, our hero, is made to look like an idiot because she didn't realize that this was a ruse.
Now, from reading stuff online about this movie and its abject failure, and it's never going to have its conclusion. Peter is stuck in the desert for fucking ever. He's stuck on the pizza planet forever outside on fucking planet Mars. He'll never get home. They talk about the movie, I believe, changed it to make 4 more prominent and more capable than Beatrice. Like, he is upgraded for this movie. And a lot of the actors, especially Shailene Woodley, had a big problem with the script of this movie.
As she should. That's totally right. Because like she is seen as completely willing to let the wool be pulled over her eyes by this seemingly like
she loves her mommy.
Yeah, by like this seeming like perfect society, and she's like, well, I'm just gonna go with it. He seems like he knows what he's doing, and you have 4 basically telling her from the jump, this guy's bad news, and he's gonna do bad things, and she just chooses not to listen. And it's just like, why does that have to be what our main character is?
The other thing I want to mention, so I tried to read up a bit about this. It fucking hurt my head. I have nothing against YA novels. I like sci-fi, I like fantasy. I don't know what, I think it's just because the naming conventions of this fucking movie and every faction and every city and everything being so fucking on the nose. Like, this movie better end with like this series should have ended with like somebody saying, and now Chicago shall now forth be known as paradise, because every fucking thing has to be exactly what it is. The Dauntless, Candor, the Amity, the fucking What's the city called?
Providence, Rhode Island, future hub of America.
Just Jesus Christ, the name. But I had to figure out, why is he called 4? Is he like a clone? And he's the 4th version? Is he the 4th? Like, is that his military rank? Why the fuck is he called 4? Here's why he's called 4. He gets the nickname 4 from his instructor Amar due to having only 4 fears: heights, shooting innocents, claustrophobia, and his father Marcus Eaton due to a traumatic childhood. That is the dumbest reason to ever have any nickname ever. I don't care what your nickname is, whether it's Bubba, whether it's Junior and you're tall. That is dumber. I really do not like it. You're only 4 feet. One of your fears is shooting innocents. What are you talking about? That's your fear. No one would sit there and like list it out. Well, let me see how many fears he has. Well, unlike a lot of people, he fears shooting innocents. Shut up, Amar. That's the dumbest thing. Call him Toby or something. I don't fucking care. What's his real name? Tobias?
Yes, Tobias.
Theo is the actual actor's name. Too many T's. This movie, let's get going on it so I can yell at it a lot more.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ronnie, who suggests this movie. I know it is your favorite movie of all time, and I am being unfair to this movie.
Well, okay, so that's
100%.
a good point, though. Do you think that you would have enjoyed the film more had you seen the prior 2 entries, or if you had read the books? Like, do you think that if you had some understanding, because this mythology is very dense, and it doesn't, I will give them some credit in that they do not hold your hand, so they expect you to have seen the previous films. They want you to know what's going on when they drop you into a thing or they talk about a character. Like we speculated in part 1, was Janine some sort of AI? Was she going to come back? And no, it turns out that she was an evil ruler played by, I think, Kate Winslet, and she gets killed in the last movie. And so, okay, that's a big deal for this movie. Like, it's the fallout of her death and like someone else taking over, and that's how we get was it Evelyn, I think, played by Naomi Watts, who's kind of in charge now, and she doesn't want to repeat Janine's mistakes, etc., and you still have all the factions and everything that are fighting, trying to get control. But like, do you think that if you had seen the other movies and had that knowledge, do you think this one would have worked better?
It might have, but just going off of this movie and the world it has created, I do not like this world. It is the world of people. Like, it's like if fucking the Harry Potter movies were just the houses fighting constantly.
Yeah.
And just there's something about it. And it might be a movie, and the movie apparently is not as good as the other 2, but it doesn't raise any interest in me to see the first 2. Like, every character besides 4 is either a turncoat, ready to kill everybody. There's no good guys. Everyone projects their face on things. Like, they keep talking about, like, eventually the plot becomes about genetic purity. There's no sense of what that means in this world, because everyone looks the same. There's no sense of, like, what the fuck is going on with that. It is not intriguing. And I don't know, like, just because it's, I think for no other reason, I think the entire time I would get really annoyed at the faction names. I think they're so stupid. Like, I can't get past the fact, like, oh, the infantry faction, which are fighters, are the Dauntless. I'm like, what? Like, why would you?
Why are they called the Undaunted? The Dauntless.
If it was kids saying this shit, that's one thing. These are all fucking adults, you know? Yeah. All the action in the movie looks terrible. It's all not good. No one runs with any sense of urgency, and they're running a lot. And I don't know. It's something about it. It's just like oil to my water.
Yeah,
I can't even put it in exact words.
So, like,
other than I've battled this movie for a fucking week and a half.
So we speculated, we were like, oh, does the movie end with like one of them on one side of the wall and the other on the other side, and they're kind of separated? But no, like, they get out of the city pretty quickly.
Pretty easily. Everyone kind of does.
We talked a little bit about the guy in the cage in the first one. This turns out to be Caleb, Triss's brother, who apparently tried to kill her in the last movie, but that doesn't seem to matter. Like, it seems like everything's cool this time around. Like, she saves him from death and helps him get out of the city and wants to take him with her to get out of the city because they got a message in the last film that basically said, hey, come out and see the real world, I guess. Because she opened a box or something, I guess. Is what Triss opened some sort of puzzle that revealed the message to her. That's why she's important, and that's why the leader wants to see her, I guess.
And apparently she's divergent because she genetically could have been on any faction. I don't know what that means. I just read those words.
Oh, I thought she was like genetically pure, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that meant that she could be on all the other factions because everybody else except her is disturbed. What was their phrase that David kept calling them?
It was damaged.
Damaged.
Pure
That's
versus
right.
the damaged.
They're disturbed.
Yeah, but like no one seems any different than anyone else. I think in the first two movies, that's what made her not being like genetically, she's genetically suited for anything, and then she becomes factionless, is why she's divergent from everybody else. I think the genetic thing was introduced in this movie.
Oh, okay.
Like until David tells her that's not part of what it is.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And also, by the way, we know Caleb is a stuffy suit. Because he's the only one who will call her Beatrice. Because, mind you, everyone else calls her Triss because that's her code name. Like if my code name was Bri. It's not her nickname or someone just shortening her name due to familiarity or friendship. That's her code name.
So
like Josh is your code name. Joshua is your real name.
That is true. I do go by my code name. So they take Caleb out. This part was very silly to me. He takes him out, and it seems like, oh, something bad's about to happen. And Four takes him outside, and they're taking him to see Triss, and some guards come out, and they're like, oh, all erudite prisoners should be in cages, which is the dumbest line of dialogue I think I've ever heard. And Four says, I can handle this. And then he throws him down and shoots at him. And the guards are like, well, he's dead. Let's go. And they go away. And
basically,
it's so obvious what is happening.
It's the equivalent as if like some kid doesn't want to eat their food and they turn their face sideways and pretend to eat it. They push it down the side of their cheek. Nom, 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 nom.
They're like, eat your carrots. And they're like, I don't want to. Come on, eat them. And then he just turns and he just kind of slides it along his cheek. And he's like, see, I'm eating it.
And they fall for it. This is like from this point to them getting to the Chicago O'Hare Airport, and I only knew it was the Chicago O'Hare Airport because the fucking Wikipedia told me. I didn't pay attention. to it.
They do say it. I did catch that when I was watching the movie. Like we're at the former O'Hare Airport, and I was like, oh god.
Apparently, in the books, it's supposed to be more reminiscent of the actual airport. Like this is just a different building built upon the land that where the Chicago O'Hare Airport would have been.
This is like
so it's probably haunted.
This is like a Dubai future city. That's what it looks like when they fly in later. Like, so they get out. They have to take with them Peter, played by Miles Teller, who is an asshole in this movie and in real life, if articles are to be believed.
And if you look at his face, he looks like if Richard Gere had sex and procreated with a wax statue of a Kennedy. I mean, the man is just a walking douchebag in this movie. I'm making that distinction just for the sake of case.
Yeah,
things are not reported right, but he's probably a douchebag.
He's a walking smirk. And so
which somehow undermines everything in this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
The fact that they ever trust him, because he's the character physically to our eyes is the most untrustworthy person on the planet.
Yeah.
And yet they have to and apparently in the other books he's already betrayed them multiple times. Yet we pick it up like he basically blackmails them to letting them go with him, and then they trust him from that point on.
Yeah,
until he backstabs him again.
That's the weirdest thing about this, is that there are seemingly all these like big moments that should be given more weight. So like we have Caleb, and granted we don't know what that whole plot to apparently try to kill his sister was. So we don't know how serious that was, or if that was a feint or whatever. But we have Caleb and Triss meeting each other again, and it should be this moment where it's like, look, I'm really sorry for what I did. Like, he yells at her across the way in the cages early on in the movie, but that's not the same thing. Like, they don't have this emotional moment where he's like, look, I'm sorry for what I did. I was scared. And she's like, it's okay. We're family. Like, I understand. And I don't want you to die here. So I want you to come with me. And it's like, just that simple scene would be enough to kind of reestablish their connection. And like, but I guess it's, again, they expect you to have seen these movies and they know it, but we don't even get that reconciliation moment. Like, it's just jump in the car, let's go.
I'm guessing from other characters later that the whole family is bizarre in this world, as far as like everyone's parents are somewhat important, and all their parents seem to be on different sides. So you never like it, considering that the central plot requires Triss to implicitly love and trust anything that mentions her mother. The fact that everyone else's family connection seems very weak and aggressive, it makes it seem like why does she care implicitly so much what her mother, she's being told her mother thought and said, versus like she doesn't really give a shit about her brother. Her brother tried to kill her. They may have been brought up separately. 4 seems to be in a bit of apparently has a fear of his father. One of the 4 fears.
Yeah, who we see
he can't get a 5th one. He had to
time.
change his nickname. Yeah, and we see that later. Some in this stupid scene where they're attacked by they use Nickelodeon gas to
erase his memory.
But like it's just like established to me early what family means. If this family connection is going to be so centralized to why she's a dupe for a good fucking 40 minutes of the movie.
And like, this is I mean, granted, that is the whole conceit of this month's worth of shows, is that we are jumping into third films and series that we don't know. But I do think that it is the filmmakers assuming that we will have seen the other films, so they don't have to set those things up because they feel like we already know. And that can be a problem because like you don't always, your audiences are not always going to be in on you. Sometimes people just go to the movies because there's something playing and they need a way to kill 2 hours. So sometimes there's air conditioning in movie theaters. Yes, and sometimes you will get people who don't know what your story is, and if they go in, and yes, that's sort of on them in a way, but like, cuz I recently I saw it twice in weird scenarios. I saw Happy Death Day to You, the sequel to Happy Death Day. I got to see it early at this double feature screening. So I saw the first movie, the filmmakers talked a little bit, and then they showed the second movie early. So I got to see both of them back to back. Best way to watch that series because there's lots of little visual callbacks to the first movie. There's lots of really fun stuff happening, and they feel like one sort of big story. And it worked really well. So in my mind, I was like, well, you definitely need to see the first one before you see the second one. Yet I saw the second film again with my roommate. They weren't able to go with me to the double feature event. They had seen the first one. They liked it. We saw the second one. They liked the second one fine, but I think they didn't have that first one fresh in their memory, so they missed a lot of the callbacks. But as we were leaving, there was a person who was talking to someone about it, and they were like, so the first one had this going on, I think. I'm not really sure because I didn't see it. And I was just like, okay, so you're going to see a movie that you don't know anything about. And that's sort of the same situation here. We have these things that are presented to us that we are supposed to know, but we do not because they aren't really given any weight or any focus.
But which is very interesting because right here they're escaping out of Chicago, which I'm sure is a big fucking deal. Like apparently the first two movies are taking place entirely inside Chicago. We're finally going to see the outside of Chicago, the fringe, where something's happened. And as they're escaping, they're being attacked by some guy with a mohawk who wants to kill them. He's very angry at them the entire movie. I don't know his backstory. They have to go over this electrified fence. They unelectrify it very easily, which is good for the movie. Keeps things moving. They have some poor running scenes as they just do not want to put any effort into this.
That run up the wall is not good.
Like there's nothing good for a while here. And then they get to the top of the wall and they just kind of just stop for a second. Why? Because the movie wants it to. It's a quiet moment and you know that means someone's going to get shot. And sure enough, someone named Tori gets shot from below and she's dead. Now, this may have weighed if you read the books or watched the Tori 2 movie. I believe she is a major character. The movie walks on from this very quickly.
It does. And that's that same thing, is that there's no weight given on these big moments. Like we have this character who seemingly is important. She dies and it's just like, well, we got to keep going.
Like fucking, the people leaving are Peter, Four, Caleb, Beatrice, and another girl. Who basically disappears until the end of the movie.
Christina, Zoe Kravitz. Yeah.
Yeah, Zoe Kravitz. She might as well not be in the movie for the next, until the very end.
Yeah, pretty much. She's barely in the film.
She's barely in the film. Like, am I supposed to care about her from other movies or the book? I can't help it. She's seemingly important enough to leave with the core characters here. When they get to O'Hare Airport, checking their baggage, going through security, she just kind of she doesn't have a plot line.
Yeah. Yeah,
so she's just gone until they leave.
Yeah, we do get a lot of stuff with Caleb and Peter because they have the surveillance post. We get the stuff with
Boy,
Four.
do I have a lot to say about the fucking pods. I have so much to say.
We get Four going out with the military troops into the fringe area and dealing with all the kids stuff that we'll talk about. And then, obviously Triss being as genetically pure. I got some weird vibes off of that. And like dealing with David, the leader of that group. So like we have all of these characters doing all of these important things. I don't even remember what Christina's role is. Like I don't know what job she gets when they get there.
I assume she's in the military. The fighting force because she knows how to use the discs.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We don't see her go out on a mission. But of course, Four only went on a mission because when he was told he was too early in training to go on it, he said, "But I am going," and they let him.
Well, she is actually, now that you mention it, she is there on that mission because she's at the very end. We don't see her during the actual mission where he's running around trying to get kids. But we see her at the very end when they have all the kids lined up and they're giving them the inoculation quote. But she is there because she's like, oh, there's something going on. She also recognizes there's a problem. But again, then she disappears from the movie until the very end.
So they get outside and the world looks like melted cheese.
Yeah, it's like a Salvador Dali painting. It's this very surrealist looking landscape, which I thought actually visually was kind of nice. Like the rivers have this sort of red blood-like water, and
it rains red for some reason, unexplained, but it does rain red.
I guess it must be like an acid rain or something. But I think you brought up this good point, which is that they live in a city that is pretty decimated, and they get outside and they're like, what happened out here?
It's like they left the decimated city, like literally husks of buildings. They do have future tech. I want to make this very explicit. They have laser guns and computer consoles and all kinds of future tech. Future for us in Chicago. But we're going to see future tech in a second that even they don't understand. But like it's raining red. It rains red right outside the wall, but not inside the wall. So maybe they have a filtering system.
Maybe it's like the soil is more acidic or something, and so that creates issues with like the clouds and the atmosphere, and so maybe there's like a higher concentration of weird chemicals in the air outside of the city, and so that's causing the weird sort of acidy red rain.
Yeah,
but it's not really acid because it doesn't affect them. It just looks like blood raining down.
Yeah, they just kind of walk through like they're walking through like a VR theme park ride. They're not that affected by it, and they're just kind of walking slowly through the. Like at this point, in theory, they don't even know where they're going.
That is true. They are just kind of walking. Like they know that there is the source of the message is somewhere beyond the wall, but it doesn't seem like they have a clear destination point.
So they get out and they're attacked by the bubble people.
Well, no. First, they get chased by Edgar, who is like the mercenary guy who's been killing all of the people during the during that little like trial that we talked about in part 1. He's the guy who keeps pulling the triggers on everybody who dies. So he's sort of like the head executioner, I guess, in this new civilization. And
he seems to have some personal thing against Triss and 4, but once again, I do not care.
But he's out on his little dune buggy, which I thought it was like, oh, okay, they just let people go out beyond the wall. Like maybe they used to just let them go out beyond the wall, but seemingly they stopped that this time. But so they're not worried about like contamination or anything because he's just out there riding around like no.
Well, yeah, like I mean, these people, like 4 of them are part of the like 4 is the son of the leader.
Yeah,
but like he seems surprised at what's out there, but like her other soldiers just have jeeps and go out.
Yeah,
like how much? It's never clear to me how much the leadership and certain parts in Chicago know about what's going on outside the wall. Because sometimes they seem like they're in on it, and sometimes they seem completely surprised by it.
Yeah. So they get chased a bunch, and this is where they run towards the. They're basically just running, and it looks like there's like a weird shimmery effect in front of them, and then essentially the air opens up, and there's like a whole bunch of people there with like, they look like a bunch of Halo characters. They all have all these big like mech suit type things on with guns and spaceships and all kinds of shit. And
one of them says Gadzooks at this point, and I just wanted to turn it off. Well, I probably did turn it off considering how long it took me to finish this movie.
But so that brings up a good question. Like, they have a shield essentially around Chicago O'Hare, which visually makes it look like there's nothing there. But if you were to walk to that, would you run into something solid? Or are they responsible for making the land look like it does and the fake rain so that it keeps people from venturing too far out? Like, because once they go into like the shield or the barrier, like it's nice. The weather is nice. So
I think that part's a visual thing. I think the damage is real because people live in the fringe.
True.
And they're crazy sand people. Edit that part out. They're crazy. They're crazy, just nomads, and I guess more genetically deficient. Like what? I don't know what the difference. The whole genetic thing made no sense to me. But by who was in Chicago and who wasn't in Chicago? Chicago's the experiment. What are the fringe people? What is it? A fringe festival? Like I don't know what's going on in there. But they come out and they attack them by they save them / attack them by shooting bubbles around them.
Well, yeah,
that make them float.
Yeah, and they blast Edgar's vehicle away, which that guy should be dead, but he's not because he has to be the bad guy for the rest of the movie.
He has a scar, Josh.
Yeah,
he has a scar.
He has to be a guy that 4 can beat up later. So they put them in this bubble and they fly them. They fly them to the new city, which we find out is in O'Hare, and the reactions to these people, like to this city from these characters is so lackluster. Like you are seeing a thing that you've never seen before. Like you understand there's future technology and everything, but like the city that you live in is pretty devastated. It's very sort of broken off into tribes. There's not a whole lot of like very advanced technology seemingly, and you are seeing this glittering gorgeous future city, and the most we get is wow, amazing, and that's basically it.
They're so underwhelmed, and they just go with it pretty much. They go in, and we get to have Triss strip for no good reason and get a future shower.
Well, there's a reason for that.
Oh, I know there's a reason for that. There's blue fire. I wrote down she gets an oil change, and then she was attacked by the stuff.
I like so we get a little bit of a before they go into or is this after the showers? I think it's before, but it is after they get the info on the bureau. But when she's going through the shower, I liked the voice that we hear, which turns out to belong to Bill Skarsgård, best known as like Pennywise in the new It movies. But he's like, "Put your hand in the hole, please," and it was so funny to me because spoilers for Velvet Buzzsaw. There's a character who puts her hand in a hole in a machine and it just rips her arm off and sprays blood everywhere. So I just kept waiting for that to happen.
Well, generally that's what you would assume would happen. Instead, she just gets a barcode on her wrist that helps her get through doors.
Yeah, she should get her arm cut off and then get like a cool bionic arm.
But she's genetically perfect, whatever that means in this movie. And it's the dumbest future tech. Like, they drop goop on her and it sucks into her everything and she's like, ah! And then she's fine. And then they get Under Armour outfits and they hang out in a locker room for a few minutes.
Yeah,
and they're all they're all, and then they go through the carousel of progress at Epcot Center to let us know the history of this fucking place.
That is exactly what that is. Yeah, they're in the Bureau of Genetic Welfare, and it turns out that in the early 21st century, they mapped the human genome, which doesn't... The way that David, the director, played by Jeff Daniels, says it sounds like he keeps saying genome, the human genome, and
well, he's
mispronouncing gnome.
Dumber.
We mapped the human gnome.
Now we can make beautiful cookies in trees.
So then some sort of war happened. Bunch of people died. And then they
blamed it on genetic impurity or something.
Yeah. And then they relocated to the O'Hare Airport. The Chicago was the walled city of Chicago was established to bring back the human race using unmodified humans. So like I think that's what it is. Like the genetically modified people were ungenetically modified people were sent into Chicago so that they could try to develop again as humans. Like,
but I mean, unfortunately, they developed into people who can only exist within one faction. What does that mean? And who could fucking care? What is the factions and being genetically suited for a particular faction have to do with with the fucking end of the world? Like, this is so fucking shoehorned.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the book explains it better, but in this movie, it's like, what is this? Like, if I had watched the first two movies, I'd be like, what the fuck is this about?
So Triss gets to go meet David, who I said was played by Jeff Daniels. He's the director of the Bureau. He kind of lays all this stuff out. He says that her mother was actually born in the Fringe and brought to Chicago by the Bureau to see if her genetics could redevelop. And then somehow she and whoever Triss's dad is, which I don't know if we ever know that.
I think maybe the soldier in her memory thing who like saves her and gives her a smile is supposed to be her dad.
Oh, maybe. So yeah, she gets to see through her mother's memory tabs.
Here's the okay. So he puts stickers on the sides of her heads, and all of a sudden she can see her. Flashbacks are hard to figure out when you don't even know the backstory of the non-flashbacks, right?
Yeah.
But so we get to see this flashback of her in the Fringe, and there's like they're being attacked by people in hoods, and it's vaguely Mad Max-ish with less leather, and she ends it. When she's talking to Four later, she's like, it was like I was seeing it all through her eyes, except for she was seeing it in third person the entire time.
There are parts where it looks like she might be doing it first person, because there's a moment where she looks in a reflection and she sees herself as a little girl. But then there are other moments where it's clearly not that, because you can see a guy holding her as a little girl as they run out of the thing. But I think what it's supposed to do is set us up for the fact that her mother was actually kidnapped by the Bureau and had her mind erased like they do with all the other kids. And I think that's what it's trying to set us up to let us know, like, oh, they didn't have the best intentions, and like we're supposed to know that before our main character does, I guess.
Well, I mean, if someone in a suit who's in charge of everything tells you about something called, in capital letters, the experiment, it's not good. Like, I don't care what generation, what world, or what situation you live in. If someone calls something the experiment and it involves people, it's not good. That's just a general. I'm not trying to be as smart as 4 here, right? But I could make that assumption, but our lead character has to not figure that out for the next 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But we have to realize, I like at this point, because the tale of visual storytelling is so important, especially in a movie as complex as this, where we're going to put Triss in a white dress, like something out of Basic Instinct, for the next 40 minutes to tell us that she is the genetically pure one. Until she finally decides to turn on David and she puts on black.
It's a good visual cue.
There's no one else who isn't wearing camel or black t-shirts in the entire O'Hare airport. And she's wearing white. It's just obnoxious.
So this is when we get all of the other characters getting their jobs. So Caleb and Peter get put on surveillance, and surveillance is essentially these giant pods that they sit in that allow them to see everything and, in fact, walk around inside of the place that they are surveying. So
this pisses me off so much because it's 2 things. When we see them using the equipment, they're just sitting in a chair that has 4D motion. It's one of those fucking rocking chairs at a movie theater.
It's a sweet gamer chair.
It's a sweet gamer chair, and it has a trackball for moving with your thumb on one of the armrests. In front of them is this VR screen that has bump out, and it appears to be all blue grids, right? So we see him moving around in the chair. He's moving himself through the city using the trackball. But when they visualize him seeing what he sees, he's just walking around in the city like he's using his arms and legs. Yeah. He can't be doing both.
It would have been cool if they had visualized him in the city, but he's sort of floating and he can just kind of zip around wherever he wants. Right. So it sort of mimics him moving with the little trackball, but he's not actually touching the ground.
And if he was in a big ball that he can move around 360 movement, he's wearing gloves, boots, and a helmet, that's fine. Like we see him walking in the city and we cut back and he's just sitting in a chair moving the trackball. He can't be doing both. It's like when you watch a cartoon, like a kid's playing a video game, and all of a sudden when we see the video game footage, it's them walking around the world, but in real life they're just moving a mouse around. Like, he can't be doing both. He's either virtually in this world and moving with his arms and legs, or he's sitting in a chair moving a mouse. Like, he just has a very nice chair and a very nice mouse. Like, when I'm like doing my spreadsheets at work, I don't see myself walking around the cells of Excel, you know? I'm fucking moving a mouse. Well, I don't care how big the monitor is.
Well, like, that also brings up the question of what does this surveillance technology look like? Are they just like nanobots covered in cameras flying around all over the place? Because the surveillance equipment is very good. It's not like, oh, there's a drone camera flying over that has like cloaking technology. Like, there are cameras inside of closed rooms that they can see. Like, it's crazy.
We're just told that people in O'Hare can see everything, and David's been watching Beatrice since she was a baby. Like, and
which
of course,
isn't creepy.
Which isn't creepy. Like, he says, like, later, I've watched you and 4 all along. You'll make up, which means he's watched them fuck. But we have Caleb say, oh, whoever created this is a genius. And if in a movie you say that to another character, you will always, without fail, have the person say, yes, I made it myself.
Yeah, like how is this person the one who's showing them to their assignments? Like this lady who supposedly created this equipment would be extremely wealthy and doing her own thing somewhere in a lab trying to make it better. She would not be taking the new recruits to their job sites. Here's your cubicle, have fun.
When you sat down to start your new job and they were training you in, did not Mr. Adobe himself walk into the room and show you?
Yeah.
Bill Gates showed me how to turn on my computer. Windows startup. He came like, oh, okay, we need Bill Gates to come in here. And I'm like, oh, whoever invented this Windows thing is a genius. And he's like, well, I had a little something to do with that myself. I fucking hate it.
Yeah, man. I sat down at my nice iMac workstation, and Tim Cook stepped out from behind a wall, and he was like, "Let me show you how to get this thing started."
And of course, when he's walking through this virtual landscape, which to him is just him sitting in a chair, moving a trackball with his thumb. It's so real. All of a sudden, a train runs over virtual him, and he goes, oh, as it goes through him. Meanwhile, he's just a guy in a chair.
They stole that from Ghostbusters too. But you, Caleb, are no Winston Zedmore.
They stole it from 5 or 6 other movies.
Yeah, definitely. So he sees like I think he sees like a skirmish here, like between Evelyn and whoever Octavia Spencer plays. I can't remember her character's name. And he goes and tries to tell Triss about this, but Four and Triss have like a fight. And Four's
already figured it out.
Yeah, he's real sulky too. He's like, well, I'm just damaged. And this is when he decides to go out into the fringe with the other military guys.
Well, I love this because like they get this rube who's lived in this burned out husk of a city that's technologically is more advanced than us, but would not even understand this future tech, which is never explained how any of it works. But like they gave him these cool super little probes that launch off his back and help him find targets, and within seconds, he's better than everybody on the base at it.
Yeah.
So he is incredibly competent. They're like, oh, you can't go to the fringe. It's full of dangerous people. What they don't understand is he is only afraid of 4 fucking things. And the people in the fringe are not part of that unless they're innocent. Turns out they're innocent.
Yeah. So he goes out. He's told that this is a mission to rescue kids who are in bad situations there. And Four chases down a kid and his dad. And they're like, we don't want to go with you. Another agent gets involved. The dad ends up getting killed. And it turns out they're actually kidnapping all of these kids.
Which very clear within like 5 seconds of them landing. Like they make sure like Four figures it out almost immediately.
Yeah. And they're giving all the kids this gas inoculation, which also apparently they are saying that it's to inoculate them from diseases, but apparently it's wiping their memory. So the kid that he encountered earlier, he's like, I'm sorry about your dad. And the kid's like, what dad? Basically. And so, yeah, it turns out they are erasing all of these kids' memories and taking them back to the Bureau to, I guess, try to rehabilitate them genetically or whatever it is that they are doing.
And then we flash back to Chicago because someone could give a fuck. And we have a meet down between Naomi Watts and
Evelyn and whatever her name is.
Whatever her name is. So like, and they're supposed to be meeting one-on-one, and they both say, I'm neither candor nor amity. So my words are these words. So like, I can lie. And they both have brought backups, and these words are empty. And the one side says, we're now known as Allegiant. That's the fucking title of the movie. But you know what? These people are not important. Like, they're starting a war. I don't know why they're called Allegiant, other than it's a pronoun that they're all going to name something after. I don't know what Candor is. I don't know what Amity is. I don't care what Dauntless is. I don't care what any of it is. But they're now called Allegiant, which is the title of the fucking movie. It is not important.
That's Octavia Spencer's people, right?
Yes, they are Allegiant.
Her name is Joanna. It's Joanna.
Joanna. Okay, Joanna wants the faction system back. System for life, because in the past it kept the peace, and without factions they can't be peaceful. Because they're genetically damaged. I don't know why they can't get along without factions, but they are called Allegiant, and that is the name of the movie. It is not important.
Nope.
That is the name of the movie, and it is not important to the movie.
Because Joanna is kind of out of the movie for a good portion at the end.
I'm sorry.
This is funny. So 4 is upset about the kids getting their minds wiped. He goes upstairs in the bureau to try to. Apparently, only like peer people are allowed to go up there. He
gets in there incredibly easy. You know why? Because he's 4.
Yeah, he kidnaps a woman and uses her access to get upstairs. He tries to convince Tris to leave. He's like, "You're being lied to. This is not right." And then, as a way, I think, to make his point, but also he sort of fails at it, he puts his fucking hand around her throat. And he's like on the verge of choking her while he's trying to say we need to leave. And it's like, you're not doing a good job, my friend.
Fuck, like, it's so irritating that he does anything he wants and is right all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's the protagonist.
Well, he's not, though. That's the thing.
He's a secondary protagonist. He's the secondagonist.
Well, okay. So actually, I will reveal something here. Maybe I should wait until the end. But I did look up what happens in the rest of Allegiant, because this was only part 1 of what was supposed to be a 2-parter to kind of close out the thing.
The YouTube description called it the penultimate movie. Guess what? They were wrong. It's the ultimate movie.
But I looked up a little bit about the book and what happens, and apparently there is some sort of death serum at the bureau, and Caleb is going to do something, but Tris replaces him somehow, and then she repels the death serum because of her great genes, but then she gets shot by David and she dies. And our main character dies, and Tobias, 4, is basically the main character from that point forward in the book.
Fantastic. I am so excited by that, knowing how great and cool and awesome and best fighter shooter. He shoots backwards at one point and hits a target's head straight off because he's the coolest guy in the world.
He was, I guess.
Does Tris ever shoot backwards?
But he is not convincing in this moment, and she leaves with David. They're going to go talk to the council because he says that her genetic purity might get the council to give the Bureau more funding so they can continue working on rehabilitating Chicago and trying to bring peace to that city. And so Tris has been convinced of this, and she's like, I'm going to go because I want to help Chicago.
Now, in The Phantom Menace, did you really enjoy the trade negotiations meetings and all that, and the Senate meetings? If so, I hope you enjoy board meetings in this sci-fi movie, where we get to pitch to the board of directors for a while.
A board meeting that ultimately doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean it. Like I think the actual plot of the book is supposed to be the damage versus the board, not just David, the entire board. But they are not. They get to Providence, which, if O'Hare was amazing, Providence is an orgasm of a city. It's just like, this is this world that's trying to bounce back, but they do have an awesome city already.
Yeah,
and we're told, like, we'll have more of these if our experiments turned out right. But right now we already have one, and we can't have two because backstory. But we have a board of directors, which is super exciting, and it's always good to present before a board of directors or in any meeting setting when you don't even know what you're talking about, which is what Triss's situation is.
Yeah, she gives this nice little speech about not dividing people into groups, and it turns out that and then that she wants more funding, and then it turns out that David basically, he could have done something to help Chicago a long time ago, but he didn't. He was just biding his time, and so he's kind of mad at her, and he's like, well, I want to bring the factions back, because it's...
Probably should have this conversation on the drive over. Like, that's all this was. Like, it's not like it's this big secret that, like, oh shit, she should just, like, he would have, if he was the detail-oriented mastermind that he was, he could have just not let her talk. Or, here's some talking points, don't make it up on your own.
Yeah, like, it's very silly, and it's unnecessary because it doesn't actually, like...
No, because the movie's not called Divergent 3 board meeting. It's called Allegiant, because Allegiant is so important to this movie. But now she knows that 4 was right, which we knew from, I don't know, 35 minutes ago, but pretty much for the second that David appeared on screen.
Yeah, I mean, he's not necessarily outwardly menacing, but there is something about him that is off a little bit. So it's who's playing it. He's just kind of playing it with a smirk.
But we need to talk about 4 because we haven't talked about 4 long enough. So in theory, here's my theory: if your entire city is basically your private military, everyone's in on what you're doing. You've brought in these 4 people, including Tina, who doesn't matter, and integrated them, but they're not really part of your faction, right? And this place loves factions. And 4 is going to the very top. He's forced his way in there, and he has disobeyed, and he is a constant thorn. You've taken Triss off the place. You're going to kill him. The second she gets in that plane and leaves, everyone in the room should shoot him.
Yeah, it seems weird that they don't just blow him away or kick him off the tower and like let him fall and break all his bones. Like it's
There's
so
no
weird.
reason for what they did to take him to a farm up north, and that the second she took off, the guy just pulled his gun and shot him in the back of the head.
Yeah, like that would have been shocking. Like the plane in the background is slowly lifting off, and as it turns and flies away, we just see a gun come to the back of his head, and then boom. It's like, oh, okay.
He probably would have stopped him because he's 4, but like you literally have a building that's full of army people who will do whatever you tell them. Instead, they put him on a plane with 3 or 4 of them to take him to die somewhere else, where it wouldn't matter. Like, you could just tell Triss, like, oh, he died up there because you've already stuffed his body away.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
instead,
they could have come up with any fake thing, like, oh, he went out on a mission while you were gone and he got killed in the fringe. Like, they could have come up with any dumb thing that they wanted.
But instead, it gets dumber and dumber. I thought I'd make that Jeff Daniels joke right there.
It's like one of those things where you tell your kids that you're gonna take them to like like a theme park or something, and you're like, no, we're going to the dentist instead.
Which no one really does, but they do in this movie.
Yeah, so they get in the air, and Pennywise tells him that they're not going to Chicago. They're actually going to try to kill him. It's unclear why this character, is it Max, I think is his name?
Something like that. But, if you're going to cast a sympathetic character in the bad guys, why not the It Clown?
Well, this is before that, so...
Have you seen this kid? He's 9 feet of dangly awkwardness.
Yeah, so he kind of warns 4, and 4 tackles all the guys on the ship, kills them all, which is not a smart move because then the ship crashes.
He shot the pilots immediately like an idiot.
Yeah. He's like, well, fuck this. Everybody's going down with me. And he crawls out of the wreckage. He heads back to Chicago.
But not before. He is going to go back to Chicago, but also Max has survived, if his name is in fact Max. And he tells him, tell Triss that I left you behind. She'll know it's a lie. Because 4 would never leave anyone behind.
I thought it was that 4 leaves no survivors.
I did it first too, but because either way he's perfect. But then when if that wasn't clear enough, though, to some degree, when Max then sees Triss and tells of the accident,
it's Matthew, by the way, not Max.
Matthew. He tells David and Triss what happened, and it acts like he pretty much acts like 4 is dead, right? I wasn't paying attention enough.
Yeah. He said there was an accident, and it was
4 because 4 survived because he says 4 left me behind, and David goes off to something else, and almost immediately Triss comes to his face and goes, 4 never would leave someone behind. It's like, we fucking get it. We get it.
So this whole movie, Peter has been trying to get out of the surveillance job because he hates it and he thinks he's better than that, and he wants to be one of the top dogs. So he keeps trying to talk to David about a better job, and finally David says, "Oh, I need help with something in Chicago, so I'll get you to help me." And around the same
considering that he's like pretty much omnipotent in Chicago, apparently he can close any door he wants. He can project his face like Oz on any screen, on any surface that he wants. His cameras are everywhere, including in locked rooms, watching 4 and Triss fuck. Like, why did he need anyone to do this? Why didn't he just push a button?
Yeah, that's unclear, because at the end, it certainly seems like he can do whatever he wants, although he is kind of foiled pretty quickly at the end of the movie too. So I don't know. Maybe he's like sort of
4.
semi-omnipotent.
Imagine 4 having the wealth of options that David had. He could bring back everything.
So they're trying. Triss is getting Caleb to help find 4 with his surveillance pod.
Apparently just standing in the pod also, she feels like she's just walking around the city. Yeah. Which I fucking hate this thing.
Peter shows up back in Chicago at Evelyn's. He's like, I have a way to win this war. He gives her the memory gas, and she takes it to 4's dad and tries it on him. And he goes on a weird drug trip, and then when he comes out, he can't remember who Evelyn is. And she's like, well, I'm not going to use this unless it's a last resort.
By the way, that makes 4 now 3.
4 has been captured. He's being held in the brig back in Chicago. He tries to escape a couple times. Triss is upset, and she's like, well, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to Chicago. And she basically ditches David. She's like, I'm going to steal your craft. And this line reading is so bad from both of them. He's like, you can't fly. And she's like, watch me. And then she flies away. It's just like, this is so stupid.
Once again, I mean, he immediately tries to shoot her out of the sky. And she only like Scooby-Doo escapes by being so incompetent that she accidentally misses the missiles.
Success through constant failure.
Yeah, this is basically the Laugh Olympics. And if he was going to kill her anyways, the second she said like, I'm flying off, have one of your military people immediately shoot her. Or have 10 of them.
I mean, this is one of those movies. This is one of those movies where the villain monologues, the hero monologues, no one goes for the quick and easy death. It's very much like, we have to do this. We have to stage these big epic action moments. We can't just kill you or kick you off a building or choke you to death. Like, we have to really go all out to try to take you down, even though we could have done it very easily moments earlier. And there's a really bad design flaw here, which is that only his ship can get through the camo wall. So all the other ships basically cannot get past. So as long as she gets to the camo wall and gets outside of the bounds of the city, she's free. So it seems like a really big mistake on his part.
In the first part, when they captured them with the bubbles, didn't a bunch of them go through the camo wall?
No, they all stay on that side and they just shoot through it.
That's stupid.
So they get back to Chicago just before this big battle, and Peter keeps trying to convince Evelyn to release the gas into the city. We have Tris and Christina, who's back in the movie now. They take out a bunch of soldiers. They rescue 4. We get a nice apology from Tris to 4 saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't believe you." And 4's like, "Yeah, well, babe." I mean, he doesn't do that, but he might as well.
He might as well just say, like, "It's okay, babe. I know it was your time of the month to be emotional."
God. And so Evelyn decides to use the memory serum on her enemies, on the Allegiant, because she believes that
the Allegiant is the name of the movie.
She believes it will only affect the Allegiant. She doesn't believe that it will affect everyone. Well, I don't know how they convinced her that.
It's like when I fart and I only want certain people to smell it. I just think real hard.
So they try
the power.
Yeah, they try to convince her to stop because they are like, this is going to affect every single person. Evelyn's like, okay, well, I can't do that, so I can only hurt the people I don't like. I can't hurt everybody. So she stops the serum, but Peter shoots her. He starts the serum again, which is when it starts pumping into the city and also into the room that he's standing in. So he tries to escape. He gets out and runs away.
Here's where everyone's lucky. It escaped. It really. First off, the gas is orange. It's bright Nickelodeon orange.
So you can see.
We're in a white room. It's stupid. It's a very heavy gas and it's released near the ground. So luckily, instead of coming from the top and then almost immediately breathing it in, they can just walk through it for quite some time.
Yeah, they can avoid the gas pretty easily. Yes, it's very much the color of the Noid outfit. Avoid that Noid. He ruins pizzas and your memory.
There is no evidence for or against that consuming too much Domino's pizza will affect your memory.
That's their new Domino's ad campaign. It's like, yeah, we fucked up all those pizzas, so we made everybody lose their memory. We're trying to do better.
Man, they're so desperate. They're so desperate.
But yeah, so they try to stop the serum. They're having a hard time. Caleb arrives. He shows them a way to stop it. There's some sort of weird air duct, and there's a unit that the gas is attached to, and it's like a choke point, and if they get rid of that, the gas should stop. Tris goes into the air duct like she's John McClane, but it's like a big air duct. It's like a walk-around air duct. And this is when we get that moment where David is like, his face is popping up on doors and stuff, and he's like, I can stop you at any time because I can control everything.
But I haven't.
But I haven't yet. She uses those drones that she's gotten very good at in like 2 seconds of using them, and finds the valve pump and shoots it and stops the serum release. And this is when we get a great bit of acting from Jeff Daniels, who the serum release is destroyed. He pauses for like a good 2 seconds and then goes, "No."
Like he's mad at a dog.
Yeah. They've saved the day. Everyone's still alive. Everyone still has their memories. It looks like Evelyn and Joanna have made up. They're no longer fighting. They realize that there's a greater enemy, someone who's trying to control things from the outside.
I feel like that's like if we had watched all the movies, that's what it's constantly is like factions are fighting and then a new faction comes along and like we had to work together, and then that's the new battle each time. Like it's just a new. They always have to be fighting something, so they just got to have to trump things.
Yeah, I think that's probably what Janine was. Like, she was the bad faction, and she got defeated, and now we have these other two factions that are fighting one another, and now they're going to come together, and now they're going to face off against the outside faction. So it's very much like we're bringing people together and then facing another enemy and then tearing people apart and facing another enemy. And Peter has escaped back to the camo wall. He's trying to get in, but no one will answer. They send this is what I wonder if they killed Peter or if they were leaving that dangling for the fourth movie. But they send the craft that she stole from David back to the camo wall, but it's packed with bombs. And they see it detonate. Where does it detonate? What is blown up? Does it blow up as it goes through the camo wall? Does it get back to the city? What happens?
Why not send it at like Providence? That's the main problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, send it there. But like they blow up something, and
we can't. We're saying like Peter's stuck outside. And he's yelling at the wall. Like that's a good 2 minutes.
Yeah, he's
of him cartoonishly yelling at the sky.
Yeah, I'm just trying to speed it up here because fuck.
I'm just saying, like, by the way, another dumb thing.
Yeah, and I guess we're supposed to think maybe he got blown up too or something. I don't know.
Who could care?
But yeah, Triss releases a message and she's like, we're going to tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev. And then we cut to we have her standing there with 4 on the roof of the building, and then the camera pans over and we've got a really angry looking David standing there in his, I guess he's in one of the little pods back at Chicago O'Hare, and he's just standing there staring at her angrily, and that's how the movie ends.
How often do you think he's watched her take a shit?
Too many times.
Too many times. Speaking of watching someone take a shit, this movie we watched it. How did you like it?
I mean, I think that I didn't really. I think that it is very much in. I think it's very much because I don't know the previous 2 films. I don't think that the acting is all that great in this. I think that the acting is pretty subpar. Like none of the actors gave a shit about what they were doing.
That's what it felt like. Is like they just really didn't care what they were doing or what they're trying to portray at any particular time, emotionally or energetically.
Yeah, you have people who are good actors like Naomi Watts, Octavia Spencer, Jeff Daniels. These are good actors, like they've been in good things, but it feels like they're all very one note here, and they don't really get they don't really care about what they're doing. It's a paycheck, and it's like, well, we're in a series that is doing fairly well, and we're gonna make a couple more movies, and it's an easy paycheck. And of course, Jeff Daniels didn't get to live out that fantasy and have another one under his belt, because I think it's like looking at the Hunger Games movies, the people they were able to bring in for those, like you have Philip Seymour Hoffman in one of them, and you have these like bigger actors doing things like Donald Sutherland and obviously Jennifer Lawrence is a good actress too, but like, and I not that's not to say that Shailene Woodley isn't a good actress. She's great on Big Little Lies. Like if you've never watched that show on HBO, that show's fantastic. I think a new season's coming back this year. It's great. Like she's very good on it, but she has material there that is meaty and worth like putting some thought into, and this is very basic kind of bare bones like YA apocalyptic future stuff.
Apparently it was incredibly rushed. Everyone was very pissed off about that. There was a very strict timeline on it, a very strict budget on it, and there was like I said, Shailene Woodley and other people in the movie hated the script and clashed with the director.
So it's probably just like, it's our contract, so we have to do it. And I think their only reason that they didn't, I think it's the only reason they didn't get the fourth one done, because I think initially we had talked about it in part 1, but it was supposed to potentially be a TV series. And then because of that, a lot of the actors, I think, were able to get out of their contracts because they were changing the terms of the contract in order to continue it as a series. And so a lot of the actors, I think Shailene Woodley was able to get out of having to do it. Like, she would have been contractually obligated to do another film, but because they changed the terms and made it into a TV series, maybe she was able to get out of that. And so that's kind of why it just sort of fell apart and never happened.
In any case, like I said, maybe if I was a fan of the book series, if I'd watched the first two movies and I'd been into it, I believe it was on the first one was on in my house at one time and I fell asleep. That might just because I was tired. Maybe I would have enjoyed it more. The fact that I hate the movie is more based on circumstance than anything else, but I do hate it personally. I hold an incredible grudge against it, and if that made this podcast frustrating for you or upset, I apologize. If you find it funnier, please at me at the Brian Skinner and say thank you to me for amusing you with me yelling about the Allegiant group, and otherwise. I mean, it is a sci-fi fantasy movie that was not well received, and you can see why it wasn't well received on screen.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, it was fun discussing it with you. I don't think that I will watch the first two. I don't think that I will go back and dig into this series because I just really just didn't. It was just very by the numbers, and I just did not. There was nothing here that like made me want to go back and watch the other two. Like I don't have any desire because there was nothing like, oh, that was interesting. I'd like to see how they, where does those characters come from? What do they do in the first two movies? I just don't care.
I in fact will not need Orange Gas to forget this movie because I will.
Yeah, it's pretty much already happened for me. I was mostly reading off notes this episode, so
thanks to our patrons.
Yes, thank you, Ronnie, for selecting this film this month for us. Hopefully, we did it some sort of service by you. And thank you.
Ronnie's never hate watched anything. Listen to his podcast, Deliver the Profile, Connect the Profile. What's his podcast name?
I think Deliver the Profile. Yeah.
Yeah, he hate watches Criminal Intent. What the fuck is the name of that show?
Law and Order?
Law and Order Criminal something?
It's not SVU or...
Maybe he's gonna be... This is gonna make him more mad.
He's gonna retract his Patreon donation.
I've been fucking up the name of his podcast and what it's about since before this podcast, my previous podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. And thank you to all the patrons out there for subscribing, donating, and just enjoying what you hear. Until next month when we're doing another film selected by a patron, I've been Josh.
I've been 18 because I have 18 fears.
We'll predict you'll join us next time. Take it easy.